to me, it feels as very demeaning.
Wait, are we doing communism?
How do you define it then? Because I'm hearing things called socialism that aren't.
But the prompt is communism.
I guess like in terms of communism and capitalism, both are ideal states that don't fully work by themselves. But I do think capitalism is more pessimistic versus communism more optimistic. In an ideal state, if everyone actually worked hard and they wanted to contribute to a society to make it better, I think communism would work.
Everybody cares. I think you guys are well-intentioned.
Well, you could teach them though.
Giving people government aid makes them lazy.
So the reason I'm pausing here is because the survey is actually pretty interesting here, because it's only, not even a quarter. I mean, just shy of, 25%, which many decades ago in the United States was not the case. It used to be the vast majority of all different backgrounds of people thought that these government handouts made them lazier. But as you can see, especially as material conditions wane in America, that becomes more and more obvious, and especially as people become more and more tolerant. You can see that that's it's obviously not the case, that it's like the other way around. And so I just think it's important to note that how much this has changed. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that I'm seeing this myself. I might have expected like a third and 2/3 at most, like a third, yes, but the fact that it's like legit below a quarter is kind of insane. It's a good sign. So yeah, let's guess we'll continue, right?
Getting government aid makes you lazy. A great example of that is Elon Musk. The amount of government aid the X Foundation gets in order to pursue inventions that don't work. How often did you hear about that tunnel? Elon Musk is just one example of many different CEOs, multi-corporations, who get government aid to be able to do these things just because they have the net worth.
Yeah, so I agree with you on this. I hate corporate.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a great point, because the context of this question is so often given towards like people who, need aid. But it's not really thought about in the context of people who don't need aid, which are these corporate, these corporations. I mean, it's good to see that Hannah here doesn't support corporate welfare either, which, is kind of, they have to believe that for the sake of their ideological consistency. But nonetheless, like, it is still, I mean, how can anyone support that, right? These people have so many resources, so much power. And this is such a good argument. This is such a good angle to kind of show that, this isn't, it's, hard truths cut both ways, right? Stannis the Menace quote. I mean, he's not, I'll make a video. Stannis is not the Menace, okay? Video for another. Like, there's, who, you can't burn your child alive and everybody's like, yeah, that guy's on. Whatever, small tangent. But nonetheless, right, this argument style, this way of, reframing it is an excellent way of, like, using the terms and using the mindset against, the status quo. So.
Welfare. I think it's the biggest perversion of capitalism out there. It doesn't work. Its track record is terrible. And it actually is the government coming in and picking winners and losers. And it very rarely goes in favor of small businesses, which is what most business in the U.S. actually is owned by. But the way it makes people lazy is not necessarily because they're bad people. It's because you have fiscal cliffs. You get this amount of welfare if you make under $24,000 a year. You make $25,000 a year, your benefits drop off. So it actually disincentivizes people from moving up, working harder, taking on more jobs. And it's a terrible structure.
I completely agree with that from a perspective of it creates animosity. If there was a system saying that you couldn't use a certain government aid program that you're already paying taxes to just because you make this amount, wouldn't you have animosity for those people below you?
The cliffs are, I think, more so specifically referencing like situations where people are taking in welfare and it compensates for their like lack of income, and then they get a promotion or something and they lose the welfare and they're worse off than they were before they lost the welfare and prior to the promotion. You build that state dependency and it de-incentivizes people to like work up the corporate ladder in their companies because they're receiving aid from the government.
Yeah, so there's a very, very critical flaw with this argument, isn't there? That's never discussed, and it's the fact that people have no choice but to try and ascend the ladder. It's so funny because this context of this question always puts it like there's like welfare queens out and about, right? And so they're just like indulgent in taking all these funds, but at least these pro-capitalists can understand that like there's a degree that, these people actually need this aid. And so instead of recognizing that, aid is given too conservatively, that aid is given to people, sure, that need it the most, but then they can't do anything else. The terms for what they have for food stamps or whatever it is, healthcare, they have to have a certain economic condition where, that they'll benefit from these things. I can say this myself. I'm currently in the process of applying for disability, and the level of just like degrading, insane BS, I haven't even found out if I got accepted or not, and I probably won't. You need like a disability lawyer as well, which again, if you're filing for disability, like you don't have the ability to have a disability lawyer, right? And so this is just yet another common talking point that they're parroting that makes sense to them first off. But the argument actually supports communism, because the reason these fiscal cliffs exist in the first place is because of class and the class system that capitalism creates, where classes are pitted against each other. And so, labor aristocrats, have like this class warfare against, the lower class. So it's just kind of like a, it's a misunderstanding of the direction of where that's actually coming from. When people get enough benefits, or when people get like a new economic situation where they no longer can benefit from those benefits, that's not bad. Like that's not an L on benefits. That's an L on the system. That's an L on like we need more benefits. We need to give more aid to these people. So yeah, I think that's just yet another misunderstanding.
I think also we have to say what makes people work hard, not just what makes people lazy. Because I think that's the problem. You look at government welfare, is it is essentially keeping people trapped. It keeps them trapped in cycles of poverty. We actually saw before the great welfare deal under LBJ was pushed through, we had a larger rate of people coming out of poverty and moving up in this country. And then when we implemented these programs, that has stagnated ever since. And we can see that that hasn't worked.
Help me out here real quick. So when you say it doesn't work, what didn't work?
We have not seen a decrease in the rate of people who are in poverty. And part of this is based on the education system. Part of this is based on different...
Because of LBJ?
Yes, these programs that came in, the welfare. I don't know this because of it. I think it stagnated work that was being done. For me, as somebody who works in public policy, that's what I'm interested in. What works?
Wow, I'm terrified that this woman's going into public policy. Because like she's literally advocating for things that do not work. What's their solution to this? Like remove aid and benefits? Like give people even less aid and benefits? And then their arguments might be things like, they'll say the rhetoric of like invest in the economy, invest in small business. But again, that only all looks like subsidizations for the bourgeois class, right? These, investing in small businesses never means increasing wages for workers. The fact that we even have wages is also another problem that people aren't willing to recognize. It's pretty concerning that that's, the type of reasoning that you come from that, right? Because, the system keeps these people in these economic classes. Like, the fact that they lose their benefits because they go up the ladder, like I don't understand how anyone sees that as like it makes them lazy or it de-incentivizes hard work or whatever. And I think it's pretty telling that these people think that people can only work hard in survival-based conditions where like nobody's helping each other out. The government says F you, like profit is rampant. They don't understand what they're advocating for. They think what they're advocating for is like all this shiny stuff that's in the status quo. But when you actually implement these things that that these pro-capitalists advocate for, you basically get like lawless feudalism, a modern feudalism of a kind. And it's so just like not. There's such a strong misunderstanding with this that's pretty critical, and so it's just indicative of a systemic misunderstanding and ignorance at play here from conservatives in every way that you expect, all the time.
There are cases where I think people are incentivized to work less hard in order to keep their income under a certain level so they can collect a certain amount of government money, which in that specific case, then yes, I guess it does incentivize laziness. But also, if you look at government programs like Medicare and Medicaid, they're some of the most highly approved of programs in the country. And when you make a welfare program universal, when you make it so it applies to everybody, it basically becomes politically invincible because nobody is going to argue for their grandma's health care to be taken away. And we have a problem in this country where 45,000 people are dying every single year because they don't have access to basic health insurance. And I think if we were to nip that in the bud and nationalize those giant pharmaceutical companies and make sure that healthcare is provided to everyone, we would actually stimulate a lot of innovation, a lot of labor, and a lot of hard work in this country because people would be less bogged down by medical bills and would be more healthy in general.
So without a
Yeah, so just great stuff, just a great argument, great presentation. I don't have a whole lot to add to it. It's honestly very similar to what I would have said. It's very, very hard to argue against state healthcare because you actually end up having an economy where when the state doesn't nationalize healthcare and basically take charge of it and take control of it, you actually end up having like Americans having to spend more money. There's like more, third-party stuff, more profit-based things, right? More price gouging, more, fees, more, stuff like that. Because, the capitalists are in control of the healthcare industry. So the things that people need become subject to profit. And so I think it's even hard for like these pro-capitalists to be, to argue against national health care because it is such a, Israel, for example, has a national health care system, and they're effectively a rogue fascist state at the moment. So, yeah, I think it's kind of hard to argue against that one. As Midwestern Mark said, right, like, who's going to argue to take away their grandma's health care? And it's funny that he brings that up as well because it's an extremely popular, thing with Republicans. Or in other words, it would be unpopular with Republicans for them to take away these same aid systems that they are against. It's so funny because they have all these talking points, man, but when you actually ask them about the things that are in the actual material analysis, okay, you like ask them about real things in the world, they realize like, oh shit, like no, this is not what I believe. And so, yeah, I think, just it's pretty easy to reveal how much we don't actually necessarily believe in all these bullshit things that we've been taught.